Okay, well, Nick, thank you so much for being here today. We wanted always to do something like this and bring an expert because this is a topic that it has been brought up many, many times for discussion by our colleagues. And always there is a long debate, and sometimes those debates are going on the wrong path. We wanted to bring you in because of your background and your expertise and the training, because you are the person who can talk about this. You are the person who can show them what is important and why they're doing wrong. So when we bring the topic to our colleagues saying that it's important, you should not post pictures about your details, about your clients, anything that is around the client or yourself when you travel with this client. And always we get a huge, response back trying to justify these actions.
There are probably a number of us that think very much in the same vein that your job is not about you. It's about your client and everything that involves that client, his discretion, his confidentiality, of the privacy and things like this. And there are a few people, and it's based around egos. And I don't know how else to describe it besides self-validation and egos. I need someone to tell me, wow, you're cool. If you don't know that already because you're standing next to a G6 about to hop on with your client and fly to Singapore, there's something wrong. You're already in a world where most will never see or touch, but to want to publicly utilize that for someone to make you feel better, I don't know what else the picture would be for. They say it's for marketing, but I'm like, we all know how the job works. I mean, and we're marketing to each other, which is even crazier. Hi, look at me, look how cool I am. And you're talking to a guy who does your job, not to the girlfriend or the family or so forth.
Yeah, well, first of all, thank you very much for inviting me on. I really appreciate the opportunity, and I'm happy to share whatever knowledge I can. My name's Nick Barreiro. I'm the Chief Forensic Analyst at Principal Forensics. I founded this company a couple of years ago after I got out of law enforcement. Like I said, I was a police officer, detective, sergeant over a 15-year period in California. And while I was in the investigations division as a detective, I developed a strong interest in this field. I was kind of the go-to in my department for everything audio, video related. And so when I left law enforcement, it was kind of a natural thing to move into this field, which is underserved and has a tremendous demand, with oftentimes it's involving lawsuits or some sort of a court action, whether it's criminal or civil. But I also do a lot of work for private individuals, that are trying to figure out exactly what happened on their surveillance camera, trying to figure out who it was, is it the person who I think it is that's calling me over and over again, and that sort of thing. So yeah, I kind of have a wide range of things that I do, but primarily I work with video, audio, and still images in a court setting. So for now, if you could just give me a kind of a broad overview of what you do, kind of on a day-to-day basis, the scope of different types of jobs that you do, so that I just have an idea of what kind of help I can offer.
Certainly. Well, every job, as everyone is aware, with executive protection or close protection is quite varied. Some have a lot of similarities, day-to-day routines, especially when you're dealing with either political figures or CEOs. When you work with celebrities, it tends to be a little more hairy, at the whim of the madman, if you will, because you never know what's going to happen next. But the average routine for us is a constant overwatch, constantly keeping an eye, trying to be that one step ahead. So we're doing what we call advances, which is going to locations, checking out, making sure approaches, venues, all these things are safe. We're constantly overwatching things that have to do with the family in the home, who's watching, who's paying attention. And for the most part, Clients on their own can probably do their own self-destruction as much as they can possibly achieve. Facebook, all of your social media platforms. And so trying to overwatch that, and again, why we come to you today is because there's a constant need to say where you are, tell what you're doing. And our job is to keep that as discreet as possible. We'd take a client from point A to point B, visit that city, do his meetings, his events, and go home and everyone goes, he was here? That's a good job. We've done a good job at that point, because no one on Twitter, no one walking down the street got a picture. Oh, so-and-so's in town. They must be doing something. And being able to just lay off the radar. And our colleagues, for the most part, have come forward quite often and said they wanted to get pictures. Our job is to protect this person, not only his physical body or her physical body, but their reputation, their business, how their business is portrayed, or how they're seen by the public, how their family is seen. Many of them have, shall we say, their closets, and we keep the door closed, and we help maintain that at all times.
It is a huge part of our job to mitigate risks. But in order to do that, you have, first of all, to identify risks. So you have to be always on the look. What is out there available? What information is available about my client? And it may not be by people who are doing it just to cause troubles because they want to harm, but even by people who don't know that they're doing something wrong. Nannies. The nannies will post the picture with the children, or butler, or the drivers, or now with us, the EP team. So one of the things that we get as a response from the people that are doing this is that I have client's approval to post the picture. I asked the client and he said, it's okay, I can post the picture. Well, the thing here is not legal, or, do I have the copyright to post the picture? I have the permission of a person to post the picture. The thing here is that you, as a security professional whose job is to mitigate risks, by posting the picture, you are creating a risk. And by going and asking a client who has no idea about security, the client thinks it's okay. It's not threatening. It's something that can be done because my security person is telling me, is asking just my permission, so that's okay. Another thing that we get a lot is that I used to work for that client. I don't work for him anymore. Here's the thing. For those who are in our industry, we have been in teams that they have been operating with the same radio signs for decades. They haven't even changed that simple thing. So working for a client means that you know all about his security, all about the weaknesses about his security team, information about your colleague that used to work there, you used to work together, he's still there, but are information that someone can use to blackmail that colleague and gain more access. Basically, you know all about that previous client. So you still can be used for what you know, for your knowledge.
Absolutely.
And the third thing that we get a lot is that, well, I work for a celebrity, I work for a public figure. There are already pictures of us together in media. Yes, that may be true, but on those pictures, you are just a person next to that celebrity. By posting a picture, you are now putting an ID to that person who is standing next to that celebrity. You are making the connection. You are allowing a path to come, something to come closer toward your client.
And anyone who links those things together then tracks it back. And they say, well, that's very complicated. Yes, but so are people who may or may not wish harm for your client. Being able to step forward and keep those things to a very, very dull roar is part of the process. Half the time, our problems with a lot of this come from inside the fence, if you will. Again, the nannies, the butlers, the drivers, the people that are close to think, oh, it's no big deal. We're just out doing such and such. And you're like, yeah, but you have no idea how much information you just gave the public world because your CEO or your celebrity friend has, 100 million Twitter fans that now look at that. And they're passing it around amongst themselves, and then they do their link and connect you with other things. And so it's a danger at all times.
Or if you're posting pictures that you are on that restaurant every time, you're creating a pattern that for the bad person or even a paparazzi now know that that restaurant is your favorites, and they know that it seems you going there during the weekends, so they can find you there.
Yeah. As far as it's funny because you talk about mitigating risks. That's a big part of your job. And I would assume that there's also parts of your job that are necessary that increase the risk, just like, posting the pictures is not necessary for your job. But for example, if you have your client in a limousine with a police escort, that's increasing risk. That's drawing attention. If you have your client in a Honda Civic, nobody knows, right?
And you can't get that across to people strong enough that sometimes the most simple of little things makes you disappear in a crowd.
Yeah, I mean, I was in law enforcement for 15 years, and one of the jobs that we had to do was dispose of firearms. So people would turn in firearms would be seized when people are arrested. Every police department in America collects firearms that they need to destroy. And the way that we would destroy it is it would go into a giant incinerator, some waste management company that had just this huge incinerator. And that's the way that the guns would be destroyed at my department. And it used to be that the SWAT team would load up in their fully armored vehicle. They would have a couple of chase cars. They'd have a couple of lead cars. All of the guns would be secured, and they would have this whole, like super tactical, secure caravan. And it was about an hour drive to this incinerator from my old police department. And then at some point they figured out, hey, all of our detectives have a whole bunch of just unmarked cars. I drove a Nissan Altima when I was a detective. So I loaded up a bunch of guns in the trunk of my Nissan Altima, and the other detectives loaded up a bunch of guns, and we just drove, and not a single person on the freeway knew that there were a bunch of guns going down the road. But when there was, a whole caravan, armored vehicles, and it draws attention.
Right.
So, yeah, clearly anything you can do to reduce the amount of attention, mitigate that risk. Sometimes it's not obvious. Sometimes it's like, yeah, what's the harm? Posting a picture, like, what's the big deal? We're standing here in a hotel room that could be any hotel room in the whole country, or in the whole world. Like, what's the harm of me posting a selfie with whoever I'm with in this hotel room? I don't think people often realize how much information can be contained in a photograph.
Well, it was interesting you mentioned that. We actually had, there's an individual in the business who's quite the picture posting type person, and posted something about a training day and how cool it was, and how staff in the hotel, he couldn't afford to open the door because he had all his gear out on the bed, which of course is weaponry and all this ridiculousness. But the picture was in the hotel. He's not visible at all. There's nothing from the hotel itself visible, but there's a painting on the wall and a couple of corners to some unique looking countertops and some other. We take the picture and run it through a reverse photo, figure out which hotel it was and which room, because each room is different. 4 people had stayed in that hotel, and because of the uniqueness, taken a picture. So right away I was like, well, we know where you are. We know what room you're in, and people don't think about that. They never do. And like you said, the more attention you draw, no matter how, that draws even more. We're trying to mitigate that to zero, which is, again, why we're talking about this today, because don't be your own worst enemy. There's enough out there already. Don't be yours.
There are a lot of risks created by the clients themselves or their family members that we don't have to add to that by ourselves. It's like we are coming into contradiction with our own profession, the reason we were hired. So I do understand that I have to do the work because the client doesn't know, doesn't want to know, doesn't want to get it. He has you hired to protect him and to eliminate this risk and deal with it. But when it comes down to us, even for us working in a team with people, and we have someone who is doing this, that colleague is becoming a liability to the full team.
Right.
Yep.
So that was one of the reasons that, we wanted to bring you in and say, okay, now for those people who say, I'm not giving enough information, it's just a picture, I have cropped it, you can't see much, it's just a wall, or.
And they've been saying that for a long time. And no, we're not the video or audio forensics specialists. So it's, well, what do you know? Okay, fine. I'm going to go get this guy who does know it and let him tell you, so that you understand that we're not trying to overcreate a problem, but we're trying to expose the fact that the simplicity of what you think is there isn't. It's much more complex than you realize, and you need to pay much closer attention to it.
Absolutely. So let me share my screen with you. Okay, can you guys see the photo that's on my screen?
Yes.
So this is just an image that I downloaded on the internet. I don't even know who posted it or why they posted it, but it's just an image that I found that I kind of liked the colors, and this could very well be, you know, somebody posting a picture with their client in this street. Looks like it's probably in Europe somewhere. You know, somebody more familiar with the area might be able to recognize it straight away. But even if it wasn't a recognizable background, there's a couple of things that we can do to try and figure out where this photograph was taken. So with just a simple free tool, anybody can download this program. It's called Exif Tool. This is the image, and here is all of the metadata that is contained within that image. So there's a lot of stuff that's hidden behind the actual pixels of the image, the actual visual data. This is all stuff that usually attached to pretty much every photograph you take. And depending on where you post it, some of this stuff gets stripped off so that it doesn't go along with it if it gets posted online. And sometimes it doesn't get stripped off and it stays with it. But what we're mostly interested in, there's all kinds of interesting stuff that may or may not present a security risk depending on whose phone took the photograph. But I mean, it tells you this was an iPhone 12 Pro. It tells you the software that was running on it. Obviously, it tells you the time and date stamp. It even tells you the camera settings, the exposure time, the f-stop, the ISO settings, all of that.
This is all coming off of an iPhone.
Yep, this is just a iPhone 12 Pro photograph that somebody posted online. And so I can see now exactly when this photograph was taken. It was in 2020, October 24th of 2020, and 23:47. So that would be 11:47, almost midnight. Now that could be, well, let's see. Okay, so the offset time is going to be from UTC, from military time, if you will. Or I'm sorry, not military time, but UTC. I think they call it Zulu time in the military. So +1 tells us that it's 1 hour ahead of Greenwich, England, Greenwich Mean Time. So that's a little bit of information. There's other stuff, again, more photograph stuff. You know, the flash did not fire, the focal length, all this stuff is embedded in every photograph you take with your iPhone. But what we're mostly interested in, see this whole section that says GPS? So when the person that took this photograph, their phone, when they took this photograph, they had their location services turned on, which is turned on by default on everybody's phone. You actually have to go in and turn it off if you don't want it on. And the default setting for taking photographs is that the GPS data gets embedded in every photograph. So unless you go in and opt out of one of those two, every photograph you take is going to have the GPS data on it, which is helpful if you are trying to organize your photographs by, you know, where you went on vacation. Your iPhone can group all of the photos that were taken in Hawaii. They can just put them all together because they know where those were taken. So GPS latitude, GPS longitude, it even tells you how far above sea level or below sea level you are, the altitude. That's all you need to know to pinpoint exactly where this photograph was taken. And sure enough, we'll just go ahead and do it live right here. We can take those coordinates, latitude. We'll see if Google's smart enough to just do it this way. It looks like it's trying to put it in the middle of the ocean. Okay, so we'll put in the north and the west. Oh, there we go. Well, there's a Five Guys. So that might be right. Let's take a look. Yep, there it is.
It is right, yeah.
So this is just a random photograph that I found online. This isn't anybody that was trying to be careful about what they were posting or what information was going with it. But I imagine most people that post photographs online aren't careful about that. And this is the default. This is the default with an iPhone. This is all the information that you're going to get.
What else can someone use if, let's say, the GPS options were off? What else somebody can use? What information can he use from the picture to pinpoint the location? I'm assuming he can use the two stores, the Five Guys and the other one, which I don't remember. It's a restaurant or something.
Absolutely. So let's look at the photograph again. I mean, this one's easy, right?
Yeah,
I mean, this is
yes.
a public street. There's no way you're hiding because you can see the names of about 6 different businesses right here. So Morgan's Fish Bar and Kebab House. That's a pretty unique name.
I was about to say, not everybody, it's not a chain by any stretch.
I don't think there's too many of those in the world. So
No.
if you Google Morgan's Fish Bar and Kebab House, you're going to get one result, I'm sure. But there's much more challenging situations than this. Like I said, this is an easy one. You may or may not be familiar with Geoguesser. So
I've heard the name, but I've not ever seen it used.
So Geoguesser it's a game that basically drops you into a street view of some location in the world. And the whole game is figure out where you are based on the images around you, based on just visual data. And this is a pretty popular game. There's a lot of people that play this game. It's kind of a way to see the world without ever leaving your desk. So if you're posting a picture, even if you're really careful about the GPS data going out, if you're posting a picture that has any publicly visible background to it, so a public street, a beach, a park, there's people out there that will recognize it and immediately, they will know where you are. We can play a quick sample game here. Well, that's not very hard, is it?
Oh.
So this is kind of a just an idea of how this game works. The Eiffel Tower's right here. And it looks like we're looking at the Eiffel Tower, not from the riverside, but from the other side. And we're right at this roundabout, right? So I think we're right there. Yes. Spot on.
Look, you received a new badge. How amazing.
Okay, so the picture was taken right there, and I guessed right there. That's how this game works. So there's lots of people out there that play this game.
Amateur intel analysts by putting a game out there like this, who can sit this down and basically track anything by figuring this out.
Yeah, I mean, it's a cool game. I mean, it's I haven't played it more than just going through this kind of a sample.
There is another game, I don't remember the title, which is similar to this. They have videos, so you have also to listen for language if you can pick up language. So they have audio. It's and you can they show statues, and they show streets with have statues, or they have something like architecture that you can it can be familiar to you, or streets, and so that's something similar as well.
And this is fairly accurate. I'm noticing at the bottom here, it says your guess was 4 meters from the correct location.
Yeah. Yeah. So with people out there that can accurately, and Google makes it easy, right? Google makes it easy to check your work. Like if you say, oh, I think that's a street in London, you can easily go to Google Street View and double check. Just like we did with the actual GPS coordinates, we just used Street View to confirm that those businesses were around there. So again, whether or not you're posting photographs with metadata attached, there's no real safe way to do it where somebody out there doesn't recognize. I mean, I can't think of anywhere other than maybe somebody's private residence that nobody else on the internet would recognize.
Correct. Something that requires there's a certain expectation of privacy at that point. No one would be able to see it before. Yeah,
but I mean, every hotel room has been stayed in by countless numbers of people. Every beach, every park, like I said, I mean, there's not very many places that are publicly accessible that are safe to post, because all it takes is one person on that Twitter thread to go, oh yeah, I was just there last week. That's so-and-so, And if you post that picture immediately after being there or while you're still there, now the entire world has access to your current location.
Exactly. And all you would need to do really is present yourself as a tourist. Hey, loving this great place, blah, blah, and you're drawing off of your intel for the bad guy, shall we say, is everybody in the whole world. You're putting it out there, playing a game of, hey, I was doing this. What do you guys think? And of course, 10 people speak up. I was there once. Yeah. And all of a sudden this guy runs off with the information he needs because half the world is watching just out of a sense of curiosity. Our insane need for social media and curiosity makes them their intel gatherers, if you will.
Yeah, exactly. So let me give you a use of this kind of thing that happened with this photograph. Do you guys recognize this photograph at all? Do you know who this is or anything?
Face on the left looks very familiar. Face on the right, no.
So this is John McAfee. I believe the one on the left.
On the left is McAfee, yeah.
McAfee. There you go. Sorry. Like McAfee antivirus, right?
Who's dead now?
So do you know the story about this
particular photo? No.
Do you know the story about him though?
Yes, I tracked him and followed a little bit just because you look for other sources of intel and news and whatever else, and you end up with, shall we say, the fringe edges of either conspiracy theories or guys that are saying, hey, I'm being followed, and everybody says no, they're not, and you catch those stories.
So this was a result of an incident that happened in Belize. So Belize, the authorities wanted John McAfee here in the photograph for questioning they suspected he was involved in a shooting of another American that lived near him. He claimed he was innocent. He claimed not to know anything about it, and that he was being set up by the corrupt officials there.
Of course.
And so he fled and he went into hiding. And he agreed to give Vice an interview. So a Vice reporter actually went and interviewed him where he was, and they published this photo with their story. And Vice didn't delete any of the metadata before they posted it, and essentially told the entire world, this guy who was in hiding, they told the entire world exactly where he was. So this is just another format of how that metadata can look. And there's your GPS location right there.
Jeez.
And that GPS location shows up right there in Guatemala. And if we zoom in a little bit more, it's right here in this like yacht club marina area, which seems to match with the photograph, right? I mean, that's probably where he was.
Yes. Out of
And
curiosity, that latitude, longitude, is that what, down to 1 square meter? What's the accuracy within?
so that's super accurate. However, I mean, you're talking about tenths of a degree.
Okay, yeah. So you're talking within a square meter. I mean, it's like, yeah, you had to be where the guy was standing with the camera versus where they're standing is the only allowance for variance.
Yeah, sorry, and not tenths of a degree. It's actually tenths of a second. So you got degrees, minutes, seconds. So
Gotcha. So
super
extremely accurate nonetheless.
Yeah, I'm sure if you went to where that pin is in this marina area, you could probably find those palm trees and figure out exactly where he was standing right there.
Certainly.
So yeah, this is kind of an extreme real world example, but it's a legitimate thing that happened. And later on, I think Vice, just trying to cover themselves, said, "Oh, we fooled you. We purposely put fake data on there so that you wouldn't know where he was."
Yeah, too late.
Which I find that a little hard to believe, because it's so much easier just to delete it. Like, why bother putting fake information on that? Like, I think they were just trying to cover themselves, and it actually was taken at that location.
Correct.
So yeah, so they figured out that he was in Guatemala, and I don't know the end of that story. I don't know if he ever.
Well, he's dead now, so.
So how did he end up dying? Did somebody find him?
I think supposedly he committed suicide, but he spoke about it before, saying if you.
He actually tattooed himself with a message that said something about, "I don't kill myself," or he basically knew something was coming. I mean, this is the story that's been presented, is that he had a tattoo on his body actually stating he wouldn't kill himself, and then he was found as a suicide victim, apparently.
Okay, yeah, that's
it gets deeper by the minute. Like I said, we have to try and weed this stuff out and come forward with, that's again why we've reached out to you. This is science right here. This isn't conspiracy. This is anything else. This is unfortunate what people fail to pay attention to. Now that we have this lovely technology is a quite sharp two-edged sword and goes both directions.
Which is accessible by anyone.
Yeah.
You don't have to have a specific training or background. It can be accessible for someone who may want to stalk and is obsessed with your client.
Yep.
And it can be by reporters or paparazzi, or even, by people who want to harm him.
So just so you know, same exact problem with videos. If you think, oh, well, I didn't post a photograph, I posted a video. Same exact problem. The default is that your iPhone or your Android is going to attach the location metadata to that video.
And again, if somebody says that I don't have the metadata on, there are still ways to locate and gain information.
True. Yes. So this is just a random, again, an Apple. It was an iPhone video that was taken, and it looks a little bit different, but you can see down here at the bottom the GPS coordinates are right there. So
when you've got a GPS coordinate of a video, if they're moving, would that be varied, or is it just going to pick a point, say mid-range into the length of the video?
It's probably just going to be the starting point.
Starting point. Okay. Very good.
When you start the recording.
Correct. Okay.
So, well, let me ask you, where do you think most people in your profession who are posting stuff or sending stuff to their friends or whatever it is, what method do you think they're using to send it or post it?
That, I mean, name the social media platform. We quite often, I mean, the most regular ones, Twitter,
Instagram,
LinkedIn, Facebook, and LinkedIn. Those four are fairly popular.
And TikTok now.
Oh God. Okay. So yeah, we won't even get into that. But I mean, the four big ones that like everybody seems to be using: Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, and what's the other one?
Twitter.
Yeah. And they'll take their pictures, and it's pictures of the client, pictures of the client's plane. Here we are at the airport, as they quote, just another day at the office. And in the background, of course, they're at some airport. You can locate the airport, you can locate the time, in which case you would know at least when they took off. Again, it's probably after the fact. But those sort of things, those are the four big ones, and they post there regularly because all their friends are watching, and everybody sees it.
Yeah. Yep. So every social media platform, every way that you could send or post a video kind of treats the metadata a little bit differently. Obviously, we know that it's not safe no matter what, because whatever's in that photograph is going to potentially be harmful anyway. But there are a variety of services out there that don't strip any metadata, and there's some that strip limited amounts of it. So for example, Pinterest and iMessage, that data is almost, it's not necessarily always retrievable, but in some circumstances, at least, you can retrieve that data from Pinterest, iMessage, Google Photos, Flickr, Dropbox, all of those, like particularly any service that you can actually share a file versus an image. If it treats it as an actual data file versus an image. So like Dropbox or Google Drive, or if you send it by email, all of those just attach the entire file. They don't care what's contained in the file. They don't care that it's an image or a video or what it is. It sends the entire file and all of that extra metadata with it. So those are never going to strip any of that stuff off. TikTok is an interesting one. TikTok does strip the data on the surface, but they have some very interesting privacy policy language. And they freely admit that they are collecting as much data as possible, and that includes your GPS location, contact information, the make and model of your phone, all that stuff. And it specifically says they are free to use it however they want. So like, even though on the surface they strip that data, they're saving it. It's on their servers. And there's potentially flaws. I've seen that there are reported flaws that allow skilled hackers to attack the TikTok account and actually just gain all of that information straight through TikTok. They don't have to do anything too fancy to get in there and just get the data that TikTok is already storing on you anyway.
Right. So TikTok is stored it. They're just hacking in and grabbing everything that TikTok had.
Yeah. Okay. So let's imagine that you take a picture with a client. You're super careful. You don't have your location services on. You're standing against a blank wall. There's nothing but just a white background. You confirm after you take that photograph that there's nothing in the metadata. You strip out everything by hand, even the time and date stamp, everything. You just take it all out, and it's just the image. Like there's no other information to be gained from that photograph. The question is, were you that careful with the other photograph you took 10 minutes before that? Were you that careful with the one you took 10 minutes after that? Are you that careful with every single photograph you take that clearly you're not just posting a single photograph to your Facebook or to your Instagram or to your LinkedIn account? You're posting a bunch of them, the whole trip, right? Like you said, they're posting in front of the plane, they're posting in front of the car, they're posting at the beach, and whatever it is. Not all of them are quote unquote incriminating for your client, right? Because your client's probably not in 90% of the photographs you took. However, you almost certainly are taking photographs and posting photographs in close proximity to that super safe one that you made sure you were ultra careful about. You're almost certainly posting other photographs in close proximity to that. So the bottom line is just don't. Like there's no good reason to, other than, like you said, for your own ego. Like what else do you get from that? You know, it's not, I mean, you guys can say it better than I can. It doesn't seem like that's going to help you get more work. It doesn't seem like that's going to help you get new clients because you're showing that you're not careful.
And and I've said that a number of times. I've like, the first thing a client, if your quote portfolio, if you will, is pictures of you with your clients in foreign countries. If I'm the next client and I have 2 ounces of intelligence, not to insult anyone, but just to lay this out here, I would look at all those and say, so you take all these pictures with your clients? Is there no confidentiality? That would be the first question I would ask. And most of these guys would be like, well, and of course they'd have to shut everything off. One of the points you made earlier was you take that super safe picture and you strip the data, or maybe you turn off location when you do it. The point is, on most phones, you can either turn on location overall, or you can turn off location only while using apps, and you're switching buttons and you're pushing things back and forth just to take a picture. You're going to forget. You're not going to remember, or you're going to have one on when the other one isn't. Take the picture and it's going to get the data from somewhere.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, there's really no safe way to do it. And anybody that has the time or the determination to find you based on what you're posting, they're going to find you.
Right.
No question.
And there are some motivated people to start with anyway. This is just like handing them some sugar-coated candy because it just makes it easier. Following you is an age-old time process. PIs and private investigators. It's easy to follow someone, but now they can follow you in their brown fuzzy bunny slippers from their living room and their cup of coffee on their laptop because you've given them such a trail to follow that how could they miss? Yeah.
I mean, this isn't the type of stuff that I do on a daily basis, but somebody could come to me and, I try to get an idea of why somebody's hiring me, what the reason is. And I don't take work that I feel just, nah, you're up to something, right?
Correct.
But there's other people out there that just take the work based on, hey, if you've got the money, I'm going to do it.
Correct.
And even if the particular paparazzi, stalker, whatever it is that's trying to figure out where you are, even if they don't have the slightest bit of computer skills and the ability to do what's honestly a very basic analysis on a photograph, they can watch a YouTube video and figure it out in about 2 minutes, or they can hire somebody like me. And
that's the thing in this day and age of hackers. You get every kid in high school who's decided he's not going to go to college. He drops out of high school. He's somehow had the proclivity to be able to tear apart computers and know them inside and out and how to function with them. He's the kid who will do it for cash because there's not particularly a moral or ethical background to this individual. And you come to him and say, $1,000, give me a location on this. Kid types it in, gets it, walks away, and suddenly he's gun for hire when it comes to intel and analysis.
Yeah, no question. I mean, you can make $1,000 in 2 minutes worth of work. Yeah. So just real quickly, a couple of things about video that is just a little different than just a still image. So when you take a video, you're posting, when you're posting a video, you're posting thousands and thousands of images, right?
Yes.
So all of the stuff that we already talked about with images is a problem with a video. But you have bigger problems with video because there's other stuff that can be gained from a video. Like you guys mentioned, I think background noises, languages being spoken in the background, stuff like that. That's relatively easy stuff. If you want to get into the more advanced stuff, there's a technique that I use all the time, particularly with surveillance videos, where you have thousands of images of the exact same scene, right? Because most surveillance cameras are static and they don't move. You can take all of those images, stack them on top of each other and average them. And that gives you what's called a super resolution version of that scene. So even though the camera might not have a super high resolution, or maybe there was a bunch of noise, you know, it's late at night and it's dark and the video is really grainy and noisy and you can't see much. That's the perfect scenario where I use image stacking all the time. And what that does, when you take an average of all of that, you remove all of that random noise because it's random. It's like snow on, you know, in between channels on old analog television. It's just random noise. If you took the average of a bunch of frames of snow from your television, it would just be gray, because on average, all of those pixels are half the time black, half the time white, and it would just be gray. So what you get when you do that with a video, with a series of images from a video, is you get a super clear, higher resolution image than what you started with. And I've used it to identify people. I've used it to identify license plates. Whereas in the original video, you can't see that license plate at all. But you start stacking those images and taking an average of them, and then it's clear as day. So if we're telling you not to post any images, that goes double for videos. There's no reason to ever post a video. There's another technique that we can use that's even more advanced. It's called ENF, electrical network frequency analysis. And basically all we're doing is we're using a natural phenomenon that happens with all power, all electricity in the world. And what happens is electricity, the power that comes out of your wall, if you're in the United States, it fluctuates between positive and negative 60 times a second. Our electrical grid operates at 60 hertz. So 60 times per second, that power is flipping back and forth. What that means for people that deal with audio and video is almost always there is a perceptible hum at that frequency in video and audio recordings, because anything that's plugged into the wall, any electronics that run on power that's coming out of a wall, they all have to operate at that frequency. So if you have even the slightest hum in an audio file or in a video file, that hum is not going to be exactly at 60 hertz. Or if you're in Europe, it would be 50 hertz. Their grid operates at 50. But it's not always going to be exactly at 50 or 60 hertz. it's going to fluctuate based on the amount of load on the grid at the time. And the reason why our electrical grids are as big as they are, like, you know, half the United States is on one big electrical grid, is because when you spread out the usage over that many people, it really normalizes things and you don't get huge fluctuations up and down based on the usage. But you still get fluctuations. It's inevitable. You'll always have fluctuations in the frequency of the electrical grid. And that acts like a fingerprint at any given point in time. I can take a recording, I can look at those fluctuations and compare it to a database, because all of that fluctuation is stored over time. And I can compare it to a database of that stored data and tell you exactly the moment that that recording was made. So even if there is no time or date stamp on the video or the audio recording, it almost certainly has an imperceptible hum that is like a fingerprint for exactly when that recording was made.
Wow.
Yep. And it's crazy. I've even heard of, because, you know, like fluorescent lights also flicker at the same frequencies that the power runs. And I've never actually done it myself, but I've heard that you can take video where there's a fluorescent light in the background, you can isolate that little spot up there, and the computer can tell you, yep, it's fluctuating at a certain frequency. And again, give you a perfect time and date stamp of when that recording was made.
And curiosity, location as well, because that area would have had that fluctuation or not?
So it's going to give you a rough area, right? Electrical grids are big. So
Rough area as in?
So like most of the Western United States is on a single electrical grid. Okay. Texas has its own electrical grid.
Yes, they're quite proud of that, actually.
But depending on where in the world we're talking about, yeah, you can narrow it down some.
Okay.
But like we talked about, there's other things that are going to help us get the location too. But the location without the date and time isn't all that helpful. If I'm trying to find somebody and I can figure out the location of this photograph that they post, if that might be the easy part. But if I don't know when that photograph was taken, if it was taken last year, that correct. Location doesn't do me any good.
No, correct, exactly.
If it was taken 10 minutes ago, okay, game on. Now I know exactly where you are. So I think the date and time is just as important as the actual location information.
True, very true.
And again, if the client supposedly is in the States, but you find information from a video that he appears to be in Greece, for example, at this time, you know, of the day, then you can have people on the ground doing additional investigations to find where that person is or where it is. So
yeah, it doesn't have to be too located. Quite often people will film a video and you say, oh, they must have done that at home, you know, in California. But you're looking around, you're going, no. And again, if you can just say that it came from a grid in the EU, well, now we know they're not in the States. Yep. And then you get a date and time. So last week at this time, he was in the EU. You know, you start to put the picture together.
So let's imagine that instead of a still photograph, McAfee,
yeah,
that guy. Imagine that was just a video that they posted. You know, they did an interview with him and they posted a video clip. Well, I don't know how big Guatemala's electrical grid is. I don't know if they share a grid with surrounding countries or not. But it would be very hard to say, oh no, we fooled you, we threw you off. If you can point to that electrical frequency and say, no, you didn't. You're
no, he was
in Guatemala. 100
square miles of this location. We still know he's there, perhaps not the direct location, but
yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I guess the bottom line is the same thing you've been telling people for years, right? Just don't do it. That's the easiest. I mean, there's no benefit in posting stuff like that.
And the really sad part is they're all living off of, in the end, when they say, my client said so, I'm in the press, so it doesn't matter. They all come back to one thing. Even there will be some, even with this empirical proof we're bringing forward today. Hi, here's what can be done. Yeah, but it's never happened before.
Well, it happens just once.
Which is, yeah, well, that's the thing. That's the worst thing you could ever say. Well, it's never happened before. You'll be the first if you keep posting the pictures. You know, you're rolling the dice. It's a matter of numbers.
And how do you know? How do you know that it's never happened before?
Right.
Because do you think the paparazzi is going to tell you as they're taking photographs, they're going to scream out, by the way, I found you because of that iPhone photo that you post? No, they're just showing up and you have no idea how they knew that you were there.
We interviewed a paparazzi, well-known, now retired, who sat back with us and was willing to listen and take questions, and the inside scoop on how these guys get their information and who they find weakest in the chain surrounding a CEO, who they bribe first, and who they, you know, the interesting stories. It's crazy. You're right. And they're not going to give up their secrets. That's what gets them $250,000 a photo when they put some celebrity in a very awkward position on the front of National Enquirer.
Really? That much?
Yes.
Oh, it's insane. When he told me how much money he gets for photos, I'm like, I'm in the wrong business.
Seriously. I'll track them down and you go take the photographs. Okay.
There we go.
that is why these people can be so determined to achieve their goals.
Yeah.
It's not someone who on the first difficulty is going to say, okay, I'm going to drop it. There are people out there who are so, you know, obsessed with your client, you know, either to reach out to him for different reasons. And you have to be careful. You just have to be extremely careful, especially when you are the person who is the security professional who has to breathe, you know, and live security every second. And you said earlier that, you know, your area is different than ours. I would say that your area with our area is in a lot of working together. We have, when you're dealing with big clients, ultra high net worth clients, they have their own teams. They have their own Nick who is going to do the exact same and make sure that the information that are out there, this is the information that are out there available about for our client right now. So you make aware the executive protection team about what you found. And let's say you have a video, you received a video by a guy threatening your client. So you want to get as much as information about that. Now you are in the States and the guy is located in Australia. Well, now you have to find how possible, you know, this threat is. Now you have to find that person connection in the States so he can carry out the attack or anything else. So what you do and what we do has a lot in common when it comes down to working together.
And they should, if they don't now. When we mention it to smaller teams, to add on someone like yourself, maybe an expense or maybe something they can't do on a regular basis, but it's contract by contract, but it's coming forward and realizing the two work hand in hand. If I'm going to protect my client in advance of, or proactively, as we say, this is perfect for proactive things, not only to check out areas we've been in, but to go through everything that's possible on a client, determine it to provide protection against things that have not happened yet, but are building.
Yeah, I think there's lots of maybe untapped opportunities. I imagine most clients that are hiring security professionals have cameras all over their houses, all over their cars. They have cameras everywhere recording stuff for security reasons, or for liability reasons, right? I mean, who wouldn't want to sue the CEO of a company because, you know, they pushed them or what, you know, there's all kinds of potential liabilities that they're trying to mitigate. And the fact that there's video out there, that is the whole reason I exist pretty much in this profession. It's everything is being recorded these days. It's very rare for there to be a crime committed where there isn't a video somewhere of something, even if it's some rural road out in the middle of nowhere. Somebody on that road has a Ring doorbell. Somebody on that road has a Nest camera above their garage, and they caught the car driving by. You know, there's so many so many cameras out there constantly recording. And I imagine your clients, it's 10 times more than the average person. So when there's that much video out there, there's a lot of potential for, investigations that maybe you don't want to make it public, right? Maybe you don't want to involve the police because you don't have anything criminal yet. Maybe the same car has been driving in front of your client's house every night for the last week. And all you have is a grainy video in the middle of the night, and you can't even figure out the make and model of the car, let alone who's driving it or the license plate or any of that. That's not enough to go to the police. The police aren't going to do anything with that. Cars can drive on public streets.
No, that was one of the, interestingly enough, when you mentioned that, we had a job a while back, and I was in charge of a large team of professionals, both providing executive protection for clients as well as residential security team, static at the homes. And we had to start to correlate information. You can't just come up with even one thing. There's a car and a plate. Okay, what does that mean? Well, here's a car and a plate at 2 locations. Here's a car and a plate and a face that pops up at 3 locations. Well, now you're getting correlation. And this is where today, social media, pictures, stories, sometimes it's not even a picture. It's, hey, we just got back from, and you name the island and you name the place. Well, now I know where you just got back from or where you're with your client. And all I have to do is search for pictures, relating to that. And it all starts to circle back in correlation. It's like when you talk about trying to find something within a 3-dimensional space, you need 3 points of location to then create the location. Same thing here.
Yeah, it's funny. I was involved in a civil lawsuit. I actually had to sue my neighbor years ago because the house next door to me was a rental and the owner lived out of state. And really, it was kind of an out of sight, out of mind thing. She didn't pay much attention to that house and just kind of let the property management company take care of it. And the neighbor's tree, they had several trees that were just terrible cottonwood trees that the roots came all the way across the front yard of my house, started lifting up the concrete walkway, lifting up the driveway. I noticed this right away. Like before any of the damage happened, I got in touch with the property management company and they said that they would talk to their owner and let me know, and nothing happened. And bottom line is letters went back and forth, emails, phone calls over a year and a half. And of course, during that year and a half, the damage kept getting worse and nothing was done. And so finally, I had to file a small claims case just to get the owner's attention because I couldn't talk to her. She would not respond to any letters. She would not, it was only the property management company and they kept blowing me off. So I filed a small claims case, no big deal. I didn't know where to serve her. I didn't have an address for her. I knew she was out of state. That's all I knew. The property management company wouldn't give me any information on her. So long before I was even involved in this business, I went on Instagram and I found her. She had a unique name, so I was able to find her Instagram account. I downloaded some of her pictures, and sure enough, there the GPS data was. And I had enough that I knew where she worked, where she lived, her old address and her new address, because her Instagram account went back for years. Like I had everything I needed and she had no idea. So, a week later, the local sheriff knocked on her door and served her with my small claims case from California, and she had to fly out to California to deal with it.
That's, right there. And that's discussion. Like I said, someone might come back at us with, well, this guy's, a professional. The average person is not like this. You were, quote, the average person at that point. And through simple deduction, nobody can link things together, it seems like today. They just think of one fact. It's like one dimensional. And in your case, you thought, quote, 3-dimensional. You thought in several different directions how to find it and pulled it up. This is the danger. And we've been saying it for the longest period of time about protecting the client and protecting you. It's very, well, I won't say it's very rare, but it's quite rare where there's active, very aggressive threats against someone. But if there is, and the the bad guys, if you will, want to reach the client. You're a target as much as your client is.
Absolutely.
And you post a picture and they find some picture of you on Instagram with your little 3-year-old daughter. Guess who they're going to blackmail first? Guess who they're going to, because they need you to be at a weak point. When you pull up to this location, stay in the car, don't get out, don't pay attention to this, don't, create a gap where they can get to the client. So it's not just that this presents a danger to the client. You're endangering yourself. I'd rather know that all the different people I've dealt with in the 30 some years I've been in this business don't know where to find me. That would be nice.
Yeah.
And by posting more and more pictures regarding it, you're just creating more and more points of reference to then link together and create a location.
Yeah, I mean, it's so easy these days once you have somebody's identity to find them.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a completely open source, anybody can do it, doesn't cost a dime, people finding website called fastpeoplesearch.com.
I've heard of that.
I used it almost on a daily basis when I was a detective because it was great. We had access to fancy paid services that were similar, but Fast People Search was always accurate, and it's scary how much information is on there. Yeah. So yeah, you might not even make the connection that the car that's driving by your house is because of the Instagram photo you posted a week ago, and now they found you. And I mean, there's no good reason to do it. And
right.
I mean,
right.
if you want to, if you think there's a safe way to do it, send me the link. Send me your Instagram account. Send me your Facebook account. It'll be a good experiment. Let's see if
I can guarantee you there's a bunch of people who would either arrogantly, because they think they're safe, send it to you and find out an alarming speed that they're not. Or there's a bunch who would say, no, I got it. Don't worry, bud. Thanks, though. Because they don't want to find out where the weak links are in the chain. Yeah. I know for a fact that we don't post anything. Now that we're talking about this, I'm going, even the little things we've posted when we're a week past the job, clients wheels up and gone weeks ago, and we're sitting somewhere. Then I start to think to myself, I'm outside the box thinker. I'm going, how could you link that all the way back to, and thinking about the parameters of that.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's never underestimate the ingenuity and the detective work of a motivated person on the internet.
Yeah,
exactly. It has been very challenging for us because we have been discussing this before the interview, and we were like, if only we could send Nick the pictures and the videos that exist from our colleagues on Instagram.
Trust me, you would have so much fun. But we were like, no, this is going to be so politically incorrect because there's so many that do it. Like just this week, I probably have 2 or 3 instances where it's like, quote, another day at the office, or, hey, just enjoying time, waiting for the client, and I'm looking at the picture and I can just look at it and go, if I spent 5 minutes, I could pull this apart enough to know exactly what's going on.
Yep.
Unaware of things like flight aware, 24-hour flight, all these things that track plane numbers. And unless you go very strictly and have them pull tail numbers and locations, and between photos and all the things, you can search these people down in a heartbeat.
Yeah. And you might not think that the tail number was even visible in that photograph or in that TikTok video.
But in the reflection of the limousine that's sitting right nearby, yeah, no, agreed.
Yeah, it's just not safe no matter what.
No.
And sometimes whatever you post, it doesn't necessarily mean that it gives a huge hint, but it can give a small one that can lead them to another big hint.
Yeah.
It's like a puzzle, basically. You're giving them a piece of the puzzle.
Yeah. And honestly, that was the best part about being a detective. I loved putting all of those puzzle pieces together because usually there is no smoking gun. If there was, a detective's not even involved. Just the guys in uniform handled it because it's open and shut. By the time I got the case, it was because it's not an open and shut, and there needs to be some work. And putting those puzzle pieces together is, I mean, it's a fun challenge.
Oh, yeah.
But if you're a motivated individual who's really either looking at a big payday because of those photographs, like the paparazzi, or you're looking at, a stalking case, or I don't know. I mean, you guys know better than I do the variety of reasons somebody might be trying to find you, but they're motivated, right? Like, I was motivated because it was my job and because I really enjoyed the challenge of solving the puzzle.
Well, in their case, like I said, the difference between you and them is that the ones we're trying to stop have no morals and ethics. So the point is, they're going to take all that skill and they're motivated by nothing that keeps them within boundaries. They used to say, the bad guys are only limited to their imagination. And I go, I know some people with some horrific imaginations,
Yeah. I had to actually go and get a judge to sign off on a search warrant every time I wanted to look at somebody's personal data, but some random on the internet can just go and grab it anytime they want, and they don't have to get anybody's permission.
And with today's technology and apps and everything else, people can be very resourceful. You don't have to be the IT guy.
Somewhere way back when they said, well, we can do this with an app, somebody should have really thought, should we? Because it can be used in both directions very, very seriously.
The average person, they want that. The average person wants their Hawaii photos grouped together nicely on their gallery on their phone. And those are all features that somebody purposely put in there, because to the average person, it actually is a benefit. It's a feature that somebody at Facebook, somebody at Google, somebody at Microsoft, whatever it was, they decided, this would be helpful to most people.
The bad guy just exploits it because they've created a situation where there's no way to stop it from doing the wrong thing. It just helps with the right thing, and nobody pays attention to both.
Exactly.
Well, sir, this has been amazing.
Thank you.
Yeah, I want to thank you for taking the time to talk with us. Was there more? Do you have anything else you wanted to go into, or was that pretty much what you had to show today?
No, that was it. I'm happy to follow up at a later time if you get questions or any follow-up that doesn't.
Trust me, there will be lots of comments. The funny part was that the comments will come across will be good. People will point out where they think they're right or wrong, and we will, to be honest with you, if you don't mind, if you've got a place we could have questions sent to, maybe a spam box you can control. But I mean, to allow these people to at least, hey, here's our forensics guy, this is the guy we used, he knows more than we do, why don't you ask?
Yeah,
and then I'd be interested in hearing back from them to see how they, I'm not looking to be, I say this because I've raised kids, right? I don't really care about being right. I don't want you to be wrong. And in this case, that's the point. Let's get educated so we stop doing it. It's not so much that I care that you post pictures with you and your client. Yay. Yeah, I've been next to some of the highest levels in the world too. Okay. But in the end, that creates a danger. That creates a perception. That creates an opening that we don't need to give the bad guys. They have enough.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, have a great afternoon, Nick. And again, thank you so much. We appreciate it.
Thank you, guys. Looking forward to the next one.
All right. Very good, sir.
Take
All
care.
right. Bye-bye.
Bye.